Excellencies, ministers, distinguished officials from the multilateral agencies, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you to this fourth session of the Global Small Island Developing States Leaders, also known as SIDS. My name's Juliet Foster, and over the next 90 minutes, I'll be guiding you through what I'm sure will be a thought-provoking and fascinating discussion, the theme of which is Seeds for All, Hunger for None, enhancing African seed systems to benefit small island developing states. A big subject indeed. The organisers of the Global SIDS Leaders are also extremely grateful for the kind sponsorship of Bayer in supporting these debates at transnational level. So thank you so much for that support. Now, let's go into the past to take a look at the genesis of this debate. It goes all the way back to 1996, the year of the UN World Food Summit, and that declaration which underlined that universal food security can only exist when everyone has permanent physical and economic access to safe, nutritious food that meets their dietary needs and preferences. An ambition that was set to be reached by 2015 and which was further enshrined in the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals. Now, the ambition of the Sustainable Development Goal number 2 is very specific because it focuses on ending hunger, achieving food security, and improving nutrition, as well as promoting sustainable farming. But whilst zero hunger is a universally accepted aspiration, it is fair to say that time is running out. Sub-Saharan Africa is not on track to meet its target of eradicating all forms of hunger and malnutrition by 2030. The numbers really speak for themselves. Let's take a look at the most recent estimates from 2019, which reports that almost 690 million people, and we're talking here about nearly 9% of the global population, remain undernourished. Now, for small island developing states like the Sub-Saharan African mainland, numbers like this really bring into focus their severe vulnerabilities and food security risks. And of course, it is a situation that has been accentuated by two other key factors, namely climate change and, of course, the COVID-19 pandemic, all of which begs the questions, how do you reverse these dangers? Well, fostering increased access to nutritious food via plant-based innovations, allowing farmers to access new varieties of high-quality climate-adaptive seeds, well, that is one solution. But rolling out these techniques requires cultivation on a scale that is both affordable and manageable. Again, climate change, which I referred to earlier, has an impact with its unpredictable weather patterns, and it challenges both existing cultivation season cycles and, of course, the knowledge of local indigenous farmers. But as this debate will demonstrate, solutions that were pioneered in Africa could be adapted to the particular topographical characteristics and soil compositions of small islands. Mobile technologies, for instance, along with remote sensing services and distributed computing, are improving the access of smallholder farmers to information, techniques, and markets. But how far can they go in tackling these challenges in addition to existing economic and capacity limitations already faced by vulnerable nations? And what about the cost? It's all very well to talk about technology, but who should foot the bill for installing these new innovations? And the question must also be asked, is it possible to design climate-smart seed policies that are sensitive to different soil compositions and farming systems, and which at the same time are capable of delivering socially fair and beneficial outcomes to vulnerable communities, such as those in small island states? So there's plenty for us to consider, and they're just some of the issues that will be examined by our distinguished panel of experts. Let me give you an idea of what's going to happen. Each panelist will give a 5-minute speech, although having said that, there is room for a little bit of leeway on that. And afterwards, or rather during these speeches, they're going to outline their particular position, and after which I will ask them a question. And then, of course, we will come to a more general selection of questions at the end of this first set. So much is happening, plenty of ground to cover. I'd now like to welcome our next speaker, who is Mark Edge. Now, he's the Director of Partnerships, Seeds and Traits Business Development for LMIC at Bayer Crop Science. Mark, it's very good to see you. The floor is now yours, and you have 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Juliet. It's a real pleasure to be here. I first want to thank the Small Island Developing State leaders for their leadership and collaboration with Bayer bringing us together to share insights and perspectives on this important topic of enhancing seed systems to benefit smallholder farmers. We really do have a shared objectives that truly are about seeds for all and hunger for none. So, excellencies, ministers, distinguished officials, ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor for me to share with you a few of my perspectives on this topic. I'm going to start out with letting you know that my career has been centered on getting better seeds to farmers. Seed has always been a personal passion of mine because I grew up on a farm and my family still farms. Planting quality seed with the best yield potential has always been one of our most critical choices to improve our odds for producing more while using less. And it's important to keep in mind that every farmer everywhere really always tries to produce more using less because that's their basic business model. So in agriculture everywhere, it always starts with the farmer. Today, we're focused on smallholder farmers. And when it comes to seeds, smallholder farmers want and need the same things farmers everywhere need from their seed. They need seed that is adapted to their local conditions, has good quality, disease and stress tolerance, and with the best yield potential. But they also need a seed system that can deliver access to the improved quality seeds at an affordable price. Now, it's when we get to these issues about seed systems where the global disparities and gaps become painfully obvious. And unfortunately, there's no simple answers or solutions, but there are some commonalities to the challenges that we faced in the low and middle income countries, the LMICs, whether we're talking about Africa or small island developing states. So I've been working to help improve maize seed systems in Africa for the past 10 years, bringing Bayer's business perspective and acumen to public-private partnerships to address seed systems challenges. My experience has informed my opinion that developing seed systems for impact at scale with climate-smart seed hinges on basically three things. First, it's partnerships. Secondly, it's about quality seed that delivers value and reduces risks for the farmers. And lastly, it's about sustainable and holistic systems-based approaches for the seed systems. So I want to start out with calling particular attention to partnerships, because for low and middle income countries, it's clear that sustainable, holistic seed systems cannot be created by the private sector acting alone. Multi-stakeholder partnerships, bringing together organizations like FAO, UNESCO, the EU, and AU, together with state governments, the National Agricultural Research Services, or the NARS, and development organizations like the One CGIAR, all while collaborating with the private sector. Those things are what's required to create the political will, establish the enabling environment, and formalize the economic incentives for holistic seed systems to thrive and be sustainable. At Bayer, we're working in public-private partnerships to try to achieve those objectives. For example, the Taylor Maize Project, funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and USAID, has been ongoing since 2008, and together with CIMMYT, AATF, and 7 NARS in Africa, we've been working together to develop better seeds. We first identified that African farmers want and need better climate-smart maize seed with drought tolerance and insect resistance. So we developed improved seed in a joint breeding program, working closely with CIMMYT and the NARS, and we're now at the stage of scaling up with African-owned seed companies. It's important to emphasize there that it's through the existing African seed companies that will deliver that improved seed to those farmers. So to name just a few other of our public-private partnerships, in 2020, we started the Modern Breeding Project, working with the One CGR in Africa to improve cassava, yams, bananas, and cowpeas, together with maize and soybeans. We're identifying the main threats to those crops for African farmers and breeding to find solutions, solving the problems that the farmers face. Another example is that we support Plant Breeders Without Borders. This is an organization of plant breeders who transfer knowledge about underutilized species, working together with smallholder farmers to develop better varieties more suited to them. The focus there is really about the transfer of the knowledge. How do you get the local knowledge done at the local level? They have done work in Indonesia in Bambara groundnut, which is a crop that I have never had any experience with, but I understand it's got certain fit, that's very appropriate for small and island developing states. And they're planning a training session in Fiji later this year that will include 27 member countries from South Pacific community. So I could go on for hours about all the great opportunities that we see to improve seed and make a sustainable impact at scale. But let me conclude this formal part of my presentation by summarizing that seed and seed systems are complex topics with many nuances, and the devil is in the details. So I hope that from our dialogue today that we can gain a better understanding of the framework necessary for effective collaborations to dig into those nuances and details so that we can deliver access to improved quality seeds at an affordable price to smallholder farmers in small island developing states. So thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Mark. And yes, the devil is in the detail, but that shouldn't thwart the ambition. Let me add that point as well. But I mean, look, what you've outlined, again, it's really interesting about the partnerships, and that's something which I hope we'll allude to in the general conversation as well. But I mean, how do companies like Bayer, with the knowledge that you have, actually help farmers build those systems to not just deliver on food security, but also health as well?
Oh, those are very important questions, Julieta. And I think I start out always, as I mentioned, I grew up on a farm and I still am very connected with farming. And so talk about farming, changing farmers' behavior. And to change farmers' behavior, you first need to understand what problems they face at their local level. And then you have to understand why it is that they're using their current farming practices. So those issues around sustainability of whatever it is that the farmer needs to be more sustainable and produce a nutritious crop, those same sustainability things that affect everybody are the same for farmers. They have to be economically viable, they have to be environmentally benign, and they have to be culturally acceptable. So generally speaking, when we talk about farmers, their challenges center around the profitability and the environmental impact pieces that they're doing. So they often lack knowledges and resources to effectively adopt those new innovations and practices to change their ways and start producing more using less. So at Bayer, as a global leader in R&D, what we try to do is address those problems that the farmers face and figure out what it is that's going to help them change their behaviors. Why would they do something differently? And that's a really complex challenge to do, but it starts with creating better products first, and that really make a difference for the farmer, and then understanding what it is that will help that farmer adopt those things. So we use the traditional techniques of plant breeding, plus we stay at the cutting edge of all of these new technologies of molecular breeding of, let's say, for example, CRISPR, or applying artificial intelligence to this development of new seed products, making sure that we're developing the products that work for the farmers that are going to make a change in the value that they purchase. We're only successful if we deliver farmers something that's actually valuable that they'll come back and purchase again. So the focus really has to be on creating products that bring value to that farmer. So we're engaging in these multi-stakeholder collaborations to do our part to transfer the knowledge and the capacity, because it's certainly far bigger and more than any one company can do on its own. There's always these many issues that have been addressed by the distinguished speakers before me that have shown what challenges we face. But the main takeaway here, I think, is that there is tremendous progress that can be made if you keep the farmer at the center and talk about delivering value to that farmer to improve their productivity. They can produce more using less in the low and middle income countries, including the small and island developing states. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Mark. So thank you so much for those of you who have taken part in today's discussion. We appreciate your contribution, and we look forward to seeing you, well, hearing from you again in the not too distant future. Because remember, the small island developing states, this is their time. Their voices are being heard. It's time for all of us to listen and to work together. Thank you.